Washington state built its entire immigration system around sanctuary laws. Now Congress is moving a bill that could wipe those policies out overnight. At the same time, the federal government just warned states they cannot remove children from parents over gender identity disputes. And while all that is happening, Oregon lawmakers are pushing a new batch of legislation, and California could be staring down gas prices that may spike even higher as refineries shut down. 3 states, 3 different policies, but all of them point to the same question: is the West Coast governing ideology about to collide with federal law and economic reality? Let's break it down.
From Seattle to Los Angeles, this is Left Coast News. No apologies, just the truth.
Federal crackdown on sanctuary policies. The U.S. House Judiciary Committee just advanced H.R. 7640, the Shutdown Sanctuary Policies Act. If it becomes law, it would force state and local governments to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. No more local rules blocking cooperation with ICE. And here's the big part: if states refuse, they risk losing federal grants and funding. That matters a lot for Washington, Oregon, and California. All 3 states have sanctuary laws or sanctuary-style policies. Washington's version is the Keep Washington Working Act, which limits how state and local law enforcement cooperate with immigration authorities. Oregon has similar policies that restrict state resources from being used for federal immigration enforcement. And California has one of the most expansive sanctuary systems in the country. The federal bill basically says those laws can't override federal immigration authority, and under the Constitution's Supremacy Clause, federal law wins when there's a conflict. So if this bill passes, states could face a choice: comply with federal immigration enforcement or lose federal funding. What this means for Washington. For Washington state, the implications are huge. If the federal government enforces this law aggressively, it could mean sanctuary policies become legally unenforceable. Police departments could cooperate with ICE again. State restrictions on information sharing could be overturned. But that's not the end of the story, because Olympia will almost certainly sue the federal government. That legal fight could last years. But there's another piece here people aren't talking about enough. The bill would also shield local agencies from liability if they cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. That means departments worried about lawsuits over immigration detainers would have federal legal protection. So the entire legal environment for law enforcement could change. Federal warning on parental rights. Now let's move to the second federal action. The Department of Health and Human Services just sent letters to all 50 states. The message was simple: parents cannot lose custody of their children solely for refusing to affirm a child's gender identity. The federal government says child removal must be based on actual abuse, neglect, or immediate danger, not disagreements over gender identity. They're tying this directly to federal child welfare law under the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act. And that matters for Washington state because Washington has been pushing policies expanding gender-affirming care access for minors and allowing shelters to house youth seeking those services. The federal government is now warning states not to interpret abuse laws too broadly. If states start removing children from parents based only on ideological disagreements, they could face constitutional lawsuits and federal funding consequences. Oregon legislative developments. While Washington is dealing with these federal fights, Oregon lawmakers just wrapped their short 2026 legislative session. Oregon's short sessions only last about 35 days, which means lawmakers move quickly on policy changes. Hundreds of bills were introduced covering everything from housing to transportation and climate policy. One high-profile example involves a plan to spend $365 million renovating Portland's Moda Center, funded partly through taxes connected to arena activity. Supporters say it keeps the trailblazers in Portland and boosts economic development. Critics say it's another example of taxpayer money flowing into major projects while the state still struggles with housing costs and infrastructure. Oregon's session also included debates on land use, climate policies, and energy regulations that could reshape the region's economy over the next few years. Which brings us to California. California gas prices could surge. California already has the highest gas prices in the United States. Right now, the state average is about $5.15 per gallon, far above the national average. And analysts warn prices could climb even higher. The reason? The war in Iran is causing market uncertainty locally to California and refinery closures. The planned shutdown of major facilities like the Valero refinery in Benicia and other facilities could remove a large chunk of California's refining capacity. Losing that capacity means the state will rely more on imported fuel, less supply, and higher prices. Experts warn the loss of refinery capacity could raise prices by 50 cents to over $1 per gallon depending on market conditions. And California already runs a special gasoline blend that limits where the fuel can come from. That makes prices spike even more likely. Why this matters for Washington and Oregon. If California fuel prices spike, it doesn't stay in California. West Coast fuel markets are interconnected. Refinery closures and supply disruptions ripple north into Oregon and Washington, which means higher fuel costs for trucking, agriculture, shipping, and everyday drivers across the region. When California energy policy shifts, the entire West Coast economy feels it. So step back and look at the big picture. Washington is facing potential federal challenges over sanctuary laws and parental rights policies. Oregon is pushing major spending and regulatory changes. And California could see another spike in energy costs. 3 states, 3 different policy battles, but they all highlight the same reality. What happens in Olympia, Salem, and Sacramento doesn't stay there. It shapes the entire coast. And that's exactly why we cover it, because understanding these policies isn't just politics, it's about how they affect your wallet, your rights, and your community. Thanks for watching Left Coast News. Please like, share, and follow us for more stories about the Left Coast. You can find us on all your favorite social media: YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, Brighteon, Spotify, Patreon, Facebook, Instagram, X, Truth Social, Substack, TikTok. Visit our website, leftcoastnews.net, or behindthelinepodcast.com for more information. And drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Washington has already been removing kids who are having gender identity dysphoria from their families for that very reason. The schools have been helping hide those kids in the Washington foster care system. And I think it's time for the federal government to step in and do something about it. That is not a reason to remove a child from a home. It's hard enough to get a child removed from a home when there is actual abuse going on or poor living conditions. It's almost impossible. Washington State is one of the worst states for the way kids in that system get treated. I think the state is the highest in the nation for the number of child deaths. Last year it was around 50. And it's unacceptable that they would focus on something like gender and not actual abuse that's going on, drug use, poor home conditions, all that stuff. That's what they should be focusing on. So yeah, it's time for the federal government to step in. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.